When you were a kid, thinking back, what did you think you were going to be when you grew up?
Well, I always, from the time I was a kid, as I had said, wanted to be an actress. And I thought I was going to go out to Hollywood, become a great actress. Everybody would recognize me. I would have fame and fortune, do movies. I had these big fantasies. And as I grew older, they evolved and changed. But all the training, all the commitment led me down a path, or up a path, I should say, to what I have really enjoyed as a very rich career. So those were my dreams. I was going to go to Hollywood and sit on the bar stool in Schwab's drugstore, and some agent was going to come discover me.
Lana Turner, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting too. There's two sides of that too. I mean, one is like the I would think the desire to act, the passion for acting and performance, and then there's the career side of it, of like fame and wanting to, achieve that. So you studied acting in college, correct?
Yes, I did.
So tell us a little bit about your undergraduate experience.
Well, I studied with a lot of really fascinating teachers, different styles of acting, very serious. I became a trained Shakespearean actress. How good I was. I was at the Yale Rep. I did a lot of classical work. I took a year from my schooling at Carnegie Mellon, and I went to the neighborhood playhouse, and I actually studied with a man named Sandy Meisner, who was a great, he really was the premier teacher at the neighborhood playhouse. So I knew the Meisner technique. And what was interesting is when I became an agent, I actually walked in the shoes of my clients, not literally, but I could talk about character. I could talk about their what it was that they were what parts they were going out for, and what the characters required. I see things from a character standpoint. I see the business really from an actor's viewpoint.
Mm-hmm. That's really interesting. Can you give us any more? Can you give us a specific example of how acting has continued to influence the later phases of your career?
Well, I think I really have I understand talent, because I worked with so many talented people, and I understand what the process is. So I like to think that I had a pretty good eye for talent. I could see that in people. I could see that drive. Talent is undefinable in some ways, and in some ways it isn't. It's a lot of hard work. It's having a proclivity towards something. Not everybody is a talented actor. Not everybody is a talented writer. Not everybody is a football player. But you find what your skills are as you go through life. And I could talk about it. I've been able to analyze scripts from that perspective. So it really, I think, to relate it to a larger concept, the things you do in life all add up. They really do. Nothing is for naught. Nothing is wasted in your education, in your experience, in your journey. The pieces start to fit.
So what did you do right after college? You finished at Carnegie Mellon, and you went, at that point, to New York or to Hollywood? Right.
I first went to Hollywood. Mm-hmm. I was in Hollywood for a while, in L.A., and then I did a movie. I did 2 small parts in movies, and I had a great line in this one movie called My Old Man's Place, where I said, one part of me says yes, but the other part says it's a sin. That was my line. Yeah.
That's great.
And I played a stubborn, wayward space cadet in another. We were on another planet. It was a Saturday morning children's show. Now, these were really exciting. So I decided to go back to New York and be serious.
Okay. And that's the Broadway work? Was that after that? Okay.
I was in the original Broadway production of Lenny, and the stage manager was a man named Harvey Milk.
Wow. Really? Wow.
I feel like a female Zelig sometimes. I was kind of in the shadows of everything.
That's really extraordinary.
I was present at the dinner, literally, that where a chorus line was being kind of shaped and created. The chorus line, the Broadway show. And I'm sitting there listening. I didn't know at the time. It's another Broadway show.
So then how did the transition from you're an actor in New York on Broadway, what was the next?
Well, I was determined. At that time, it was in the 70s, and I got involved with the women's movement. And I was determined to create my own destiny. And I didn't like the roles that were being written for women. They were either wild women or innocent women or mothers. There was, somebody's girlfriend or somebody's mother or a tramp. Those were women's roles, seemed to be. And I think you don't stereotype anybody. I don't believe in stereotyping. I like to cast against the grain. And so I decided that I was going to write or put together my own show. And I basically co-created, produced, acted in a play called Out of Our Father's House, which was a feminist play about the letters, based on the letters, journals, and diaries of women, of kind of women from the American women from the 1700s who were labor leaders, the first female minister, Elizabeth Cady Stanton, who worked tirelessly for the women's vote, Mother Mary Jones, who was a labor leader. I took my kind of passion for the women's movement and my passion for theater and put them together.
Wow.
So you sometimes have to create your own work.
So you were doing a lot of the things that you later did in the film industry in theater.
Yes, and now I'm working back in the theater again and putting some plays together.
Yeah, very interesting. Okay, so
as well as movies and television. And
you painted kind of the picture of the dream, the vision that you arrived in Hollywood with, which seems to be kind of almost like the classic dream of getting discovered. But what were the first year or the first phase of being there as an actor? What was that like for you? And then how did you transition? How did that transform into being an agent?
Well, as I had mentioned, I was there, and you get down to your last $500, and you're kind of, what is this? What I really want to do? I want to say lines that somebody else has written. So I'm on stage and I'm speaking lines that someone else has written. They've dressed me in the costumes. Director's telling me where to move, what to say, what to do. I had this kind of existential moment of saying, I want to be in control of my own destiny. But so my agent, I went in and had a conversation. She offered me a job. I said, that's the last thing I ever want to do, be an agent. Are you kidding me? And I started crying, literally. And I don't cry. I never cried, ever, in professional life. You don't you don't do that as a professional. For a woman in that time, you have to be more resilient and more professional to prove your worth, because the doors weren't automatically open. So I said, okay, I'll just do it for a while. But I did it and I loved it. And it was an interesting time. New companies were forming, like Creative Artists Agency. They heard about me. And they called me up, and one thing led to another, offered me a job as a beginning agent at CAA. And I was already an agent, and I said, sure. And that started the whole journey.
Wow. Now, that's another thing that I think is really interesting, the importance of timing. And I guess there's maybe an ingredient of luck there, but it seemed like you started... you got involved in agenting at this moment where the role of the agencies was kind of transforming at CAA. Mm-hmm. So were you aware of that shift taking place as it was happening, or was it just kind of happening so fast?
You never realize. That's only in, I think, retrospect. Uh-huh. You're just in it, you're doing it. But at that time, towards the middle and latter part of the 80s, CAA really controlled the business. We packaged the material. We put together the writers and the directors. One example is Rain Man. I'll tell you a Rain Man story. There was a script that came up in our meeting. Michael Ovitz, who was my boss at the time, brought a script up called Rain Man and said that Dustin Hoffman was in it and had a director, but it needed Dustin Hoffman's older brother. I said, let me read this script. I took it home over Thanksgiving and I read it, and I thought it was a magnificent script, really beautifully done. And how many of you have seen Rain Man? And I said, you know, I realize this isn't what it is, but how about Tom Cruise to play Dustin Hoffman's older but make it younger brother? Because it makes sense, logically. He wouldn't, the logic was better if he was a younger brother. Everybody in the meeting groaned and said, oh, no, that you can't do that. You can't do that. It's a terrible idea, so on and so forth. And by the way, I've had some really awful ideas. I just am not telling you about them. Just trust me, for every great idea, there's some really bad ideas. I brought in a client once, just to decide, who came in and made kind of sounds, and he was a great guy, but he got up on my desk and was howling and barking like a dog, you know, to show me these voices he could do. And the agents came down and said, what is going on in your office? And a client, that a potential client is barking like a dog, jumping on my desk. Anyway, so you had to be there. So Dustin Hoffman, they liked that idea. They bought that idea. That put together, the film took a year and a half to launch, and the studio was teetering at that point. And they went through 4 or 5 different directors. And finally, Barry Levinson came on, rewrote, reworked the script, and this whole thing was put together. But this was a case of an agency working together, packaging this, and a crazy idea, you know, of filling that brother role for Dustin Hoffman.
Wow. Fascinating. So when you're an agent at CAA, it's the early 80s, right? How did you, the list of talent that you've worked with is just extraordinary. But I would really love to hear about how you identified the talent, the clients that you ended up working with and developing, what your first instincts, or your first, the first time you saw certain actors that you ended up becoming important clients for you.
I think that I always had to look at work of people. So it's very important, and now you're in a great position because you can make a reel, or you can make work and you can put it, you can have a website, you can film yourself doing things, you can make, you know, you can make your own film. And I looked at people's work, and I think I looked for an intensity, a commitment to the role, people that had a real authenticity, an authentic connection to their own being as an actor. If that doesn't, I don't know how many of you are actors here. Nobody. Oh, I'm sorry, a couple of people are actors. So you understand. I don't want to get too touchy-feely about it, but you understand. It's being connected to a certain authenticity, and there's an intensity, and there's, or it's humor, whatever that quality is that you are able to bring to your roles and transform yourself. And everybody is unique. And it's, and I would look for certain qualities in people. I would look for that grasp of who they were and who they were through the characters that they played, and found talent that way, and just found myself interested in people before anybody knew who they were, and then worked very hard to help them build their career.
What was the first thing you saw of Tom Cruise's work, and what were your first impressions?
I covered Fox, 20th Century Fox at that time, and there was a producer on it named Stanley Jaffe who was producing a film called Taps. And I got a sneak peek because I was very friendly with the production. I was doing my job, going around covering the studio, and I got a sneak peek of some dailies of Taps. The first actor I saw was an actor called Sean Penn. I came into the meeting and said, Sean Penn, this new unknown actor. He was the first person that I co-signed with another agent. And then they said, here, let us show you another. And I looked at another piece of film, and there was Tom Cruise. And he was playing a real character at that time. And I thought he had this tremendous commitment and intensity. And when I met him, he had a lot of charm and energy, and he played a variety of characters. He was a very good actor with a good grasp. And so I co-signed with another agent, Sean, and signed Tom right around the same time.
Oh, interesting.
And Risky Business, as an aside, which was shot here, they would not see him for that because they thought he was a character actor, not a charming leading man. And I had to convince them, no, he's an actor. Actors act. Actors portray different characters.
It's amazing how many times we keep hearing this and I forget which famous show business personality said that, but like nobody knows anything.
Always true, and even getting truer.
The business, you hear these stories of these executives, and that just it seems like it's just totally wrong. And then, like for you to tell us this inside story about Rain Man, and to say, well, the script originally had an older brother. I mean, for the general audience, if you don't know that, it's inconceivable that that was the original idea, and things like that, or that Tom Cruise would have been wrong for Risky Business. It's like hard for us to then think that they were thinking that.
There are many stories like that, many stories in Hollywood like that. And I don't know, Hollywood is more mythological than actual. It's a very buttoned down conservative company town, and people work really hard. It's become much more corporate, and frankly, a lot of the most interesting and creative filmmakers come from other parts of the country. You really don't, the whole grassroots aspect of filmmaking right now. The internet, and YouTube particularly, has democratized filmmaking. Anybody can make a film. I don't know if that's good, but anybody can make a film. Anybody can act. Anybody can sing. Anybody can put anything together. I found a new app on my iPhone that you can say a sentence. You've seen this? It's called Songify. You say a word, you say a sentence, and then you can turn it into a rap song. You can turn it into anything with one sentence, and it takes your voice and plays with it. It's the craziest. That's the world we're in now.
It's amazing. How do you define star quality, and what's the difference, or is there a difference between star quality and acting ability?
I see three. There is a difference between star quality and acting ability. I guess you would say, where does the word star come from? A star that lights up the sky, that has heat and light and energy, and then they burn out. That seems to happen. Greta Garbo retired at 30. There were actors in Hollywood that weren't considered movie stars, but somebody thought that was in the silent film era, that it was great to have a movie star. I think the first movie star was a silent actress. Star quality, it's charisma, all that stuff you say. You walk in a room, you command the attention. I think it's having an absolute focus on what the task at hand, staying completely in the moment, looking at someone and really talking to them and absorbing, bringing in other people. It's ironically simultaneously narcissistic and on the other hand extremely giving. And I don't know, you can define it in so many different ways, but actors are trained. Actors, or train themselves. But an actor doesn't necessarily become a star, and a star is not necessarily an actor. The two don't go hand in hand always. And in this celebrity-obsessed culture, you can be a celebrity and do anything. You can live in New Jersey and, go to get a manicure once a week and chew gum and talk about crazy things and be a star and make a lot of money. And your name could be Snooky. I mean, that's what our culture is. She's not an actress, and she's certainly not a movie star. She's a celebrity, so now she writes a book, and you brand her and all the... It's crazy. I think it's crazy. So I go back to the source, which is why I love the theater. Actors, writers, directors, trained professionals are trained professionals and aren't junk food celebrities that come and go quickly. But that's what our culture promotes. So you can be a celebrity, but and you can be an actor who's a movie star and a celebrity. You can be a movie star who's an actor and a celebrity. You can be a celebrity without being an actor or a movie star. You can be a celebrity golfer. You can be a celebrity, tennis player.
Okay, so you're with CAA for 15 years almost?
13 and a half.
13 and a half. You got this incredible list of talent, of A-list talent. How does the transition to the decision to embark on a producing career, how did that develop? How did that happen? How did that transformation occur?
Well, it was going back to originally something I was naturally doing as an actor, putting material together, finding material. And I found that as an agent, I would inadvertently, without realizing it, do the job of a producer. I worked with Oliver Stone on Born on the 4th of July and helped really put this together, this project. And thought, I kind of like this. I kind of like really getting involved with the project and working on the financing and getting and working on, all of the elements coming together. And so I decided at one point, kind of crazily enough, I'm going to go produce, and it made sense. Again, with Tom Cruise, who was my client, we formed a company called Cruise-Wagner. It was a little more complicated, but in terms of how you do it and where you go to have a deal. And at that time, in the 90s, the production deals were very, prosperous. There were many production deals. Now they aren't at Hollywood. And we had a deal at Paramount. I had done a lot of business over the years with Paramount and set up a company and produced, found a franchise, put it together, kind of.
Yeah. It's interesting you mentioned when we were talking the other day, some of these transitions are kind of like very razor sharp in the industry. Like you're not allowed to be an actor and an agent at the same time. You have to
you can't.
And the same thing with being an agent and a producer. You
can't. So and agents cannot produce.
Legally. I mean, you may do it from behind the scenes, but you can't. You can't be a producer as an agent. You can't, because it's really a conflict of interest. You don't want your agent competing with you for jobs. You can't be. I gave up my SAG card and certainly didn't produce other than helping. I represented producers, or I helped people put projects together and functioned sometimes like a producer with my clients. But you can't produce. And I was eager to be more in the trenches with making. I wanted to be a filmmaker and make movies, so that was what motivated me. And does producing satisfy you creatively?
It does. What I love the mystique of it in a way, the mystery, and the clarity. There's mystery and clarity simultaneously. Every time you go to the floor with a film, it's different. And yet you know what your task is. Your task is to put all the elements together, is to be the glue that ties about a lot of visions together. You have the director's vision, the actor's visions, the studio's vision, the financing vision, your own vision, a lot of visions, and your job as a producer is to pull them all together and basically support the director's vision. It's really one of the few jobs where you hire your boss, the director. You hire the director, and then he tells or she tells you what to do. But you don't always listen. You challenge them. You're the go-between between the financing and the artist.
Which of your films has been most satisfying creatively for you?
It's really hard to say. I loved the others. I loved making the others and getting involved with it. It was a process. It started with having seen a film and actually hearing a pitch about it, seeing a film called Obre los Ojos, which became called Open Your Eyes, a Spanish film with a Spanish filmmaker named Alejandro Amenabar. And that became Vanilla Sky. And before I bought the rights, the studio really bought the rights to convert into an English language film, I made sure the director was happy that his film was going to be remade, and he was very much a friend in the process. So when he wrote an original, they sent it to me, and I read it, and it was jaw-droppingly amazing. This film was beautifully written, real characters. It had this fascinating woman who was slowly going mad, and you couldn't, and it was a page turner, and then you start to realize that everything you thought to be true was not, that all the living people were dead and the dead people were living, and at the end you realize that Nicole and her children were ghosts. And this was in 90, well, about the late 90s. So it was before we had run through the, haunted house movies. It was such a character piece. How many of you saw the others? I loved the process. And the crew, when we shot it in Madrid, didn't speak any English, and the actors didn't speak any Spanish, and that was good. Let everybody do their own thing.
Yeah.
But the director was amazing. So I think that was really one of the really great experiences.
That's great. It's one of my favorites, I got to say, of all of your films. It really creates an incredible sensation seeing it. So I wanted to talk a little bit more about the next transition from being a producer to becoming a studio head, and how did that happen, and what was it like to suddenly be on, in the industry from that point of view?
Well, it was, it was a romantic concept. The idea of coming into United Artists and helping to rejuvenate this dormant company. It all happened so fast. And I say you have to really understand the business base of it. This was a very small part of the big corporation. So MGM had a whole life unto itself. And in a way, it had to happen too fast. You can't just put a film company together, go ahead, do it, raise money, put an infrastructure together. I put 2 movies into production in 6 months. Put 10 films in development of all like Academy Award winning. And right at that time we went into the writer's strike, a de facto actor strike, and the economic situation in the country went under. The whole movie business came to a standstill. So there were so many events coming to play with the behemoth corporation that had needs, with United Artists that was an artist company, and the timing was off. So there were many elements to that I think was a very fascinating learning experience. Fascinating, but that was a game-changing time, I think, in the country, from about 2007 to 2010, in that range of time. All the the money, the private equity money and the hedge funds all dried up instantly. So that was a challenging time, but it was fascinating and a learning curve. It's always a learning curve for you.
And what are your goals with your new company that you launched? What kind of projects have you done with it so far, and what direction do you plan on taking it? Talk a little bit about your recent projects.
Well, I just did a project. I'm developing some films. I'm preparing some things for Broadway, and I just spent a year and a half from a concept with a huge group of people on a project for Lifetime. I've never done television, called 5. And the backdrop is breast cancer. And it's 5 short films directed by Jennifer Aniston, Demi Moore, Alicia Keys, Patty Jenkins, who directed Monster, and Penelope Spheris, who directed Wayne's World. But she had, before that, she was doing all the punk rock documentaries kind of thing. I kept thinking, Wayne's World, what is the name of that movie? I blanked on it. And it was coming together with 5 short films, and it's a massive event for Lifetime. You may hear about it. Some of you may have already heard about it. I'm one of the executive producers. I was there kind of from the beginning. And I wanted to do this because I wanted to do something that had real social relevance, that had importance. That's dear to my heart, is to make movies that have some meaning. And it was bringing the movie sensibility to television. And had a great cast. We worked with Sony, worked with Lifetime. It was a big group of people coming together to illuminate the issues surrounding it, but do it in an entertaining way. It's dramatic and it's funny, and it's serious, but it has a lot of edges to it that are quite interesting.
That's great.
And developing, I've been teaching, I've been lecturing, I've been talking, I've been writing some things myself, working on, and I like the freedom of that. I like to be able, I think now you have to be nimble, and you have to be able to work in many different platforms, because not all stories work in all formats. Avatar is not as good on this size screen as it would be, on a larger size screen. There are some material that works as a play that might not work as a film. Some things that work as film that wouldn't work as a play. The television work is getting better and better. Some of the best writers out there are in television. So now you can move back and forth. It's kind of an exciting time, and I'm very interested in all the various platforms.
Yeah, that's what really struck me, is that you're branching out in so many different directions, and it seems like almost all formats, all forms of media are on the table, including theater, television, and these are. And
it still always goes back to story.
Yeah.
You should ask.
Yeah, I was going to say same. Let's open it up to audience questions if we can. I just want to point out there's 2 microphones on either side of the house here. So if you'd like to ask Paula a question, if you could please make your way to one of the microphones, it would be great to hear some questions from the audience. If anyone, don't be shy. If you could go to a microphone. Okay. We have a question over here from this side of the house.
Hi, Paula. I was wondering.
Hi.
Since you were talking about you were branching out into theater and television, I guess how important is it, because there's a lot of web series going on, and I wonder what's your prediction for web series and other platforms too?
I think it's very exciting. I think the potential is great. I think you have to find a way to utilize the format, the length of time, and then the big question becomes, how do you monetize that? It's the rules of film, television, theater are very clear. The rules of a webisode aren't, but I think they can be very effective. It's just finding the way through it. Somebody's going to do it and make it wildly exciting. Have any of you seen any that are wildly exciting yet? Have we seen them?
Yeah. I think AMC recently did the Trivial Pursuits of Arthur Banks, and it was a 3-part web series. And it starred Jeffrey Tambor along with, I think, Adam Goldberg. And it turned out to be a success. It was
Great.
Yeah.
But it's a wonderful medium for you to write and direct and produce in. There are so many opportunities now to use these skills, the digital arts skills, invaluable. I had an assistant who worked for me who branched out and is doing he's shooting webisodes, promoting film, started doing this to promote films, and is doing this now. I don't understand it completely, okay? But it's really good, and he's using all his skills.
Interesting. We have another question from this side.
I guess my question is, what's the best way to get your content, your ideas, maybe something that you have completed into the hands of the right person, especially coming from a city like Chicago where there's not as many opportunities?
That's a very good question, and it's a very often asked question. How do you get your material to the hands of the right person? So I would say it needs to be before it gets to the producer or to the studio, it needs to go through a lawyer, agent, or manager. Rarely do people accept material unsolicited, unfortunately. There were a few bad apples that ruined it for the good apples, as it were. So how do you do that? Well, the good news for you all is you can do it, as particularly you're a writer. Are you a writer? Well, you can write from any place. You can send it online. You can send your material out now. You can email a script. That's phenomenal. But you have to, if you have contact with an agent, manager, lawyer here in Chicago, and you know precisely where you want your material to be sent, you can ask them to do you a favor and submit it. Or you can say in a cover letter, your cover letters are very important, I am willing to sign a release form, but would you please read my script? I believe that my script is suited for the work that your company does. So you have to research and be very strategic in your thinking. Get a list of all the agents and managers, and submit your material to them. You reach out. You can get that list. There are websites that will direct you to it. There's a creative directory which has a list of all the agents in Hollywood, all the managers, and find some young, up-and-coming writer or agents or managers who you can contact. Tell them about your background, your education. Put your best foot forward in saying, here's who I am, here's what I've done. I'm a serious writer, and I have a number of scripts. May I send it to you, and I will sign a release form. And I think it's a longer conversation, but and lean on the people that know somebody. It's all about networking. But I think you have more opportunities than ever now with all the internet, with emails, and access to information is phenomenal. Google writers' agents, writers' managers. Google writers' agents in Chicago, writers' managers in Chicago.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have another question from this side here.
All right. I've got 2 questions, if that's kosher. All right, cool.
Right.
The first, you talked a lot about Netflix in your first lecture. I was wondering what you thought of the recent decision to drop into only Netflix and then Quickster, especially since Netflix has seen its stock price drop by more than half since the decision to do so.
What is the question again?
What you thought of Netflix's decision to operate only as a online subscription service and dropping its DVD mail delivery service into
I
Quickster.
think they had probably no choice, and I thought, looks to me, again, I'm not an expert in this field, but it looks like a smart move because their expense, the postage, and the DVD market seems to be changing. I don't know, will DVDs be around in the next 5 years? Will they? Do you think? I don't know. I mean, they'll always be in some form, but so I think in preparing for the future, it's probably a strong move, but they have to go backwards a bit. It confused me, to be honest, and I kind of lost a little bit of my awe that I have for what they're doing, and impressed because they've been around a long time doing this, mailing out the DVDs. I think that they've looked, Redbox has probably taken some of their business. But it seems to me like a smart move. Would you not think so? Spin off a company that might not have as much a future as the streaming.
And the second question is totally unrelated. What about Without Limits first attracted you to the project? Because I'm a huge Steve Prefontaine fan, and that movie was just like totally awesome.
Thank you. Thank you. If there are any DVDs left, I'll send you one.
Oh, I already have it illegally downloaded.
Don't say that.
No. The biggest
care.
issues in Hollywood that we have to deal with. Two big issues, and if you can solve these problems, maybe you can solve them, you will have buildings named after you. Is how to monetize entertainment on the internet and piracy. Piracy is a huge problem. One of the reasons the DVD markets are so weak is piracy is one aspect. Billions of dollars are lost. I had a movie that was coming out on a Friday, and Friday afternoon someone came running to me with a they were selling on the street outside of Paramount illegal copies. They had like the one sheet and pictures, and I played it. It was good quality, except at some point whoever it was zipped up their coat over it because they must have had the camera sitting there. But they had probably filmed it in the morning show, and it was already on the street in the afternoon. And that's bad. I was on a whole committee with the PGA about how to stop it. I think one of the ways is to stop it is make things more accessible, more reasonably priced. I say give us more, not pull back. Open the doors more, invite people in more. And that's one way, and another way, and I'm off on piracy, but is to instill the sense, and I'm glad it was Without Limits. I'm flattered here. But instill the sense of everybody that that you respect the filmmakers and the people that put so much effort into this, and how you have a responsibility as filmmakers to not condone it, do it, to be involved with it. Now, on the Without Limits, I will get you a real copy if you pay me $10 for it. No,
I could get it cheaper at Walmart.
Good. No, I'll give it to you. I represented Robert Towne, who, as you all know, wrote Chinatown, and he was my client. And then he wrote on the Mission Impossibles, the three that I was involved with. I was involved with 1, 2, and 3. I'm not involved with 4, but I'm excited to see it. And he had this story. Kenny Moore was one of the was a friend. He had worked on Personal Best, and he was very close to Pre. He was Pre's best friend, and he told me this story, and it was a fascinating, tragic, wonderful, exciting story. So we decided, and Towne just wrote a script. He wrote a spec about something that was very close to his heart. And it was an inspirational story. And I love inspirational stories. If you can do them and you put some edge in them, they're not all kind of picture perfect. I loved it. So we decided to make it. That was it. The character. And Billy Crudup, nobody really knew who he was. at the time, and we had a competing movie that came out. It beat us, and it wasn't as good, I don't think, and it hurt the business of the movie. But I'm very proud of this film.
Great.
Thank you.
Another question from this side?
I actually have two questions as well. But just in going back to your first project, how did you get that investor to believe in your? How did you get an investor to believe in that product to put the money down and say, make this movie?
In what product?
In a film.
How do you get an investor? I was very lucky because I had a deal at a studio, but the studio wanted a big franchise. They wanted Mission Impossible. So I was very lucky. I was fortunate because I was partnered with a big movie star, and I'm very grateful for that. I was fortunate. It's harder when you don't. As a producer, you need to have something. You either need to have money, you either need to have incredible material that somebody wants, you either need to have the talent or be the talent, be the writer, producer, director, producer, actor, producer, or be involved with those people, or you need to be the line producer, the on the line. You need to have something as a producer, some element, and then to package it. I always say package your movie. Try to get stars, actors, a director, some element, something that catches your financing attention, and passion and tenacity, and convincing someone why it's a good investment, thinking like they think, walking in their shoes, praying. A lot of, I tell you, you knock on a lot of doors, you get a lot of doors closed in your face, knowing where the money is. Does it work for foreign pre-sales? Does it, can you shoot it for $15,000? Are you tenacious about this idea so much so you'll just take a video camera and go make it any way you can?
Okay.
There's no absolutes.
I think you answered both of them, so thank you.
You're welcome.
Right.
Thanks.
One question over here.
What aspects of a screenplay do you look at that help give you an idea of the viability of it being filmed?
Good question.
Yeah.
What aspects of a screenplay I look at that make it a viable movie? Story. First thing is the story. Is it a compelling story? Do I not know where the story's going? When I read a screenplay, if you have to hook me. You have to bring me in at least the first 12, 15 pages. You got to do something that I go, whoa, wait a minute, I don't know where this is going, and take me on a journey that I haven't been on before. So keep the element of surprise in your story. Give me a compelling character so that I know this human being more by the time I finish the script. Give a character that goes through a transformation. Give me conflict. Give me some suspense. Give me interesting action told in an interesting way. Ticking clocks are good things in scripts, something that there's an urgency. There's a sense of urgency. And even if it's a comedy, make it really funny. Make it absurd if it's absurd. Be as much as you can be. Let it be as much as it can be. But let me have a clear vision when I finish reading it of what this movie is. Don't bore me. Don't put me to sleep. Don't make me go, oh, I've heard this, seen it, it's been done before. Don't use a cliche unless the cliche is a specific thing you want to debunk or use in some way. Don't overwrite. Don't show off. Don't say the same thing 10 different ways. Do give me a character that has a transformation. Do give me a very tightly plotted script. Do give me a script that is lean and mean, as I call it. Give me something that hooks me after about 10, 12 pages. Because a lot of people will read 25 pages and put it down. So you got to get your action going right away. And give me a story that by the end I say, wow, that's unique. I haven't seen that I haven't read or heard that in quite that way.
Thank you.
Thank you.
question over here.
Hi. You talked about the importance of story, and I'm just wondering, most of the films that are, well, not most of them, but some films that are coming out lately, in some opinions, are kind of lacking in story, but more dependent on spectacle and visuals. I'm just wondering where you are on the story versus spectacle debate in terms of art and business.
Spectacles have a place, but that's not, certain live entertainment when you go to a variety show there are places where you can just have a spectacle and it's fantastic and you don't need a story. But entertainment, a play, a film, television, you need to anchor it in narrative. We as human beings want narrative. Our lives are narrative. We seek narrative. So that's me, but I need a story. Things don't work. You can go see 2 different movies about the same thing, and one works and one doesn't. Strip away the spectacle of it, strip away everything. At the core of it, there has to be heart. There has to be something that speaks to something, that has a story that takes you through it. I really liked Avatar. I thought there was a story there. It was a story. I cared about people. I cared what happened to them. And it was spectacle. So he combined the best of both worlds. The Titanic, a great story. He put Romeo and Juliet on the Titanic. That's what it was. And I liked Inception. I thought it was an imaginative way. How many of you saw that? Yeah, fascinating, wasn't it? Now that was a very complex story. That was an unusually told story, and I bet you could still debate what was real, what wasn't real, but I thought it had a real story there. And it had a story that engaged you about real people, even though it was told in a somewhat convoluted way, which was kind of interesting. All the ends met. So give me story any day. Spectacle is icing on the cake. I don't want all. Would you eat a plate of icing? You might.
Yes.
I knew that. I knew somebody was going to say that.
Somebody.
That was a bad analogy. Sorry about that, guys. I might too, and probably have. But actually, you go see things that are pure spectacle. But at the end of the day, will it stay with you? No, it's sweet and it goes away. But if you eat a great piece of cake with the icing, it tastes better, doesn't it? No, maybe not. Maybe not. Isn't a good. No, but everything for its place. And I would like the best of all worlds. Don't do spectacle for spectacle's sake. And as far as the business is concerned,
but
I think, yeah.
If I can follow up on that a little bit, I mean, some of the other points you've made are when you were talking about the way the industry is set up, the tentpole films supporting that the money is going towards that, and then the old model was that they used to support smaller projects, but that it's shifting more towards everything's going towards bigger and bigger spectacles and blockbusters and franchises. What's the future of the smaller films? And we used to have independent films that were...
Independent films. By the way, the studios are getting back into that business a little bit. Every studio has their Fox Searchlights, and they're making those films. I'm not saying... There are no absolutes, okay, in the movie business. Most everything is conjecture and a matter of opinion. But and the studios are supporting some, but not as many. Their meat and potatoes are the big event, are the Iron Man. But if you look at Iron Man, there's a real story there. Actually, there's a real character there. Spider-Man, story, character. Those films and some of the films that didn't work, I bet if you really analyze it, you'd find that they lacked story. I didn't see Green Lantern. Did anybody? Did it work? Why not? Huh?
Yeah.
Okay. So they spent their money on... Who are you?
My name is Ryan.
Okay. Clever. You got a good... Are you a writer?
Yeah.
Good. On the other hand, anybody see Bridesmaids? That had a story.
All right.
So there you go. I think that,
Thank you.
all show and no go, and it doesn't always make the money. Spider-Man on Broadway struggled, and struggled, didn't have a story. Didn't really have a story. Had a lot of spectacle and limited story. I think they worked through it finally, hopefully. I haven't seen it. I don't know if anybody here has. But it's the story.
Yeah.
I'll opt for that any day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's take another question over here.
Are you still with Cruise-Wagner Productions, and are you still actively producing and working as an agent?
I'm not I haven't been an agent for, I know I make it sound like yesterday, but I actually haven't been an agent since 1993.
Oh, wow.
And then Cruise-Wagner Productions was from 93 until 06, and then United Artists, and then now I've started my own company called Chestnut Ridge Productions. So, no, there are some films that we developed that are getting made, but no, I am not, that company is not.
And
does
do you have
not
anything
exist.
with Chestnut Ridge coming out right now?
Film, I have 5 on the Lifetime Network.
Okay.
Films in development that I'm working on.
Very cool. Would Chestnut be willing to produce any of our movies?
It depends.
We're a pretty talented bunch.
Huh?
I said we're a pretty talented bunch.
I can see that, by the way. You all seem like you were a wonderful audience, and really listened attentively, and I hope that I could impart a little shard of wisdom, but I learned from you also, because you seem like a really great group of people.
Thank you.
All of you, smart and energized and eager to get out there.
I think we're getting close to the end of our time tonight, but let's take a couple more questions. Over here at this side here, please.
Okay. The question is, you haven't mentioned like the international film festivals, and since they have grown tremendously in the last like 15, 20 years, is that still a great avenue for independent artists to go to? Because
Absolutely, more so than ever. Are you an independent filmmaker?
yes, I am.
What have you made films yet, or are you in the
In the process of producing one right now. It's like extremely hard to get in funding, but
I know
it goes with the territory.
it does. It's very challenging. It's very you really have to have a creative kind of eye for it. Look, putting a movie together is harder than making it. You have to get the rights to your material. Always nail your rights down. You really must do that. Get your money, put your cast together. It's rough. And if you get to the point where you've done that and you put it all together, by all means, you can get a list of all the film festivals online. I would just Google film festivals, international, domestic, and find out, get your short film made, get your film however, and submit it. Go for it. Film festivals really are now a great place to get financing, to get distribution, to show your films, to get recognition. It's a real step in the independent world of movie making. The independents are not dead, but they're certainly struggling still. It's better. They died about 2 years ago, but now it's coming back. But it's hard, but you just have to keep believing in yourself and what you're doing. I mean, you can ask people how they got money for films. They went to their families, they went to friends of friends. I mean, there's microfinancing going on online where you can look, you know about those?
Yeah, a lot of our students, I think, use.
Yeah.
You can say,
Kickstarter
okay,
and
you
stuff,
willing
yeah.
to invest, $100 in my film, and if 10 people invest that, that's, a certain amount of money, and you really have to have clever ways to raise financing.
Okay, another question from here.
Thank you.
Hi,
Good
I
luck.
was wondering if you would say that a quality demo reel of whatever you are, DP or editor or director, is more important than the actual degree. So like your accumulative experiences here and what you've created is more important than your actual bachelor's or master's like I'm working on once you get out in the real world with it.
Yes and no. Your demo reel is vital, and make it a beautiful demo reel. Make it a professional quality. Work towards that. Very important, because you only get one shot. But your degree is important, believe it or not. It's not gonna get you a job. It's not gonna, open every door. But you will find that it's invaluable. You will find that it contributes to networking. People that have, alumni of your university, of your college, of your school. I know that when I look to hire people, I'm impressed with a master's or a bachelor's. I'm impressed with a college degree. I just am. It says that you've cared to really involve yourself in higher learning, and so that you have a certain knowledge, a breadth of knowledge, because you're young and you can do it. You can afford the time. It's expensive, and then you get out and you have to pay back all your loans and go through the whole process, but it's worth it. So stick with it. I find it impressive. Are you, I can't see, are you an undergrad?
I'm a grad student.
A grad?
And the reason I was asking is I know I have a friend, an older man who works for the Dr. Phil show out in LA, and he was saying he's never even heard of like a master's degree in digital cinema like I'm doing.
Good, you're on the cutting edge.
But he was just saying like he didn't even know how much it would help. So that's
Well,
why I asked you.
I would assume, is he an older gentleman?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you very
You're
much.
on the cutting edge. Be proud of that. By the way, it's a very unique, I'm learning about it. I want to come here. I'm impressed. So, be proud of that. That's amazing. And I think there are so many uses in terms of having a specific, not only a skill, but a liberal arts background that you can't go wrong, having a balance of those two things. Whatever it is. So digital work is the work of now and the future, certainly. I mean, I'm a 35 millimeter gal, but I hate the idea of 35. But I guess we're going digital, so your expertise in that area is valuable, particularly to older people who until recently was practically illiterate in this area, but not now.
Let's take one more question.
Well, to begin, I'm a monumental fan. Vanilla Sky is my favorite film of all time.
Oh.
And I was just wondering, what is your favorite film and why?
I have so many, and from so many eras. I'm a sucker for my really, really favorite. I love Casablanca. Because I like that love story set against a war kind of, and I loved Humphrey Bogart and Ingrid Bergman, and I connected with the people. I guess you could say it's kind of a chick flick, huh? But I just loved it, and I loved it was a chick flick with tough guys in there, and it was it was evocative, and it had all these elements. The script was wonderful. The lines are classic. And that's an old movie. That's a classic. And I like that. And I like, what do I like? I like the Titanic. I like Jaws. I like Silence of the Lambs. That was a perfectly made movie. That was just quintessential film, and it was nasty, but it had some redemption. It had redemption. That was a brilliant movie. I liked, I don't don't know, so many. I like Citizen Kane. I'm not as much a fan of that as everybody talks about. Oh, Citizen Kane, it's a classic. If you haven't seen it, but it's a fascinating film and Orson Welles made it when he was, 26, 28 years old. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah. All right, great.
Watch films. I will say this. See films. I love silent movies. There's some crazy silent films out there. You will really learn the daring work that they were doing. I like Metropolis. Anybody seen Metropolis? That's a fascinating film. Clockwork Orange, Double Indemnity. I like noir films. I love films. See movies. Enjoy movies. And I think you can pull down a lot of stuff coming off the internet, legally, of course. But see as many movies as you can. You really learn from that. Marty Scorsese has seen every movie, I think, that has ever been done.
It's amazing.
Thank you. You have been a wonderful audience, and I've so enjoyed being here with you at DePaul. And I wish you all really great success. And certainly, I look forward to, and I don't know all of your names, but I'm sure I'm going to be seeing and hearing from some of you, and I'm, with your scripts and your movies. Now, I'm not inviting you all to kind of send them all over immediately, but I will look, at material.
Yeah. Paula, it's just been a tremendous treat the last couple days, and this night I think has really just been wonderful to get to know your work, and you've given, I think, so much inspiration to all of us. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.